Good day. For today's video, we will start with our introduction to algebra, which is focusing on algebraic expressions. Notice this says part 1 because we have 3 different ideas we will be learning about within our lesson on algebraic expressions. Our first thing that we're going to learn about is combining like terms. Our essential question for this video is, how do you add and subtract algebraic expressions? We have 3 vocabulary terms for this video. Our first one is expression, which is a mathematical phrase that contains operations, numbers, and or variables. A variable is a symbol that we use to represent a quantity that can change. And then we have like terms. So since we're combining like terms, it's good to know what like terms is. And like terms are terms that have the same variables. So in this example, 12c minus 5 plus 3c, I have bolded the like terms, 12c and 3c. So if you think about this, it's kind of like regrouping, putting similar things together rather than having them all spread out. So I would rewrite this. 12c plus 3c would become 15c minus 5 because I didn't do anything with that minus 5 right there. Now, let's dive a little deeper. Here we have a story problem, so let's think about this. Each week, Stephen gets an allowance of $8 plus $3 for each chore that he does. This is a pretty important piece of information, this $3 for each chore, because it says this implies that he's going to do more than one chore. His younger sister Jill gets an allowance of $6 plus $2 per chore. Now when we go back and read this $8 here and this $6 here, that means that their parents are just giving them $8 and just giving them $6. That has nothing to do with the chores that they do. So, to write an expression that represents Stephen, he automatically is going to get the $8 and then the $3 for each chore. Well, we're going to use a variable for that because the amount or the number of chores that he does each week can change. And we know that it's going to be addition because it tells us right here that it's $8 plus the $3 per chore. So that would be multiplying. If I did one chore, I would take 3 times 1 and get $3. If I did 2 chores, I would take 3 times 2. So we're going to use the variable c, to represent. So here is my expression for Stephen, 8 plus 3c. And for Jill, she gets $6 for doing for an allowance, and then plus $2 per chore. Again, we use that variable because the amount of chores that she will do in a week could change. Now, to combine these, for parents, they want to know, well, how much money are they forking out each week? So how much money are they spending just giving a set amount to Stephen and a set amount to Jill? That's this $8 here and $6 here. So 8 and 6, I'm going to add that together. I'm going to combine them, and I will have 14. And now here, I'm going to box this in 3c and 2c. And this plus sign here, right here with plus 3c and plus 2c, it also signifies it being a positive. So a positive 3c plus a positive 2c. The variable has nothing to do, I should say it doesn't affect how we add. We only add the number in front, which is called the coefficient. So we add 3 and 2 to get 5. C. So my new expression is 14 plus 5c. So for parents, they're going to spend at least $14 a week, and then depending on how many chores are completed, they're going to spend $5 for every chore that's completed. Our second example is when we have expressions such as this one where we have parentheses. Parentheses can sometimes be daunting when we are combining like terms because we're not really sure what to do with them. So step one tells us that we are going to box in all of our terms. So boxing in terms starts with looking at the first set of parentheses and just boxing in this first term, which is 3x. So I'm going to box that in, or draw a box around it is what I mean by boxing it in. And then I'm going to look at the next thing in my parentheses, which says plus 1/2. Plus 1/2 also represents a positive 1/2, which we will need to know later when we are actually adding or subtracting. So plus 1/2. This plus sign right here in the middle of our parentheses is our action. That's what we are going to do with our values. And now in our next set of parentheses, I'm going to do the same thing, box in my 7x, and then I'm going to box in my minus 4.5, which represents a negative 4.5. So to start, I'm going to start with my first term, 3x, and I'm going to look for anything that's similar to that. And I see 7x. Now here, this plus sign right here is exactly what I'm going to do with that. So I'm going to take 3x plus 7x, and when I add them together, 3 plus 7 is 10, and then my x follows into my answer. So I have 10x. Now I'm going to look to the next thing in my parentheses, which is right here, this plus 1/2. So positive 1/2. I'm going to add them together because that's what's within my in between the two parentheses. That's my action. And then I have a negative 4.5. So I have a positive 1/2 plus a negative 4.5. So reflecting back on what we learned about adding and subtracting rational numbers, I have one of each. So I'm going to ask myself, what is there more of? There are more negatives, so I know my answer is negative. And there's how many more? And there are 4 more. So how do I represent a minus 4 in my new expression? Just like we talked about here, how the plus represents a positive, this negative 4 looks like a minus 4. So my new expression is 10x minus 4. Now what I would like you to do, is pause the video and try this problem here in the box where I want you to box in your terms and then combine them with what is all the same. So to start, I'm going to box in my negative 0.25x and my minus 3, which is a negative 3. This minus right here is our action. This tells us that we are going to subtract. And then I have a positive 1.5 and a positive 1.4. A 1.5x. So to start, I'm going to take the first thing in my first parentheses, which is a negative 0.25 x. I'm going to subtract from that 1.5x. So I have a negative and I'm subtracting more negatives. So thinking back again to the beginning of the year, this is like a negative minus a negative is only increasing the amount of negatives. So it becomes a negative 1.75x. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my second box in my first parenthesis. So that minus 3 is a negative 3. My action tells me I'm going to subtract, and from that I'm going to subtract a positive 1.4. So my problem is negative 3 minus 1.4, which becomes negative 4.4. And again, just like in example 2, to represent this negative 4.4, it looks like a minus 4.4 in the expression. So this here is the new expression, negative 1.75x minus 4.4. What I'd like you to do is try the 3 your turns on your back. As always, if you have any questions, let me know and we will discuss them tomorrow in class.